The New York Giants are going to need a lot more out of their running backs group this season. I'll tell you what, as I look through the roster at the various running backs, that's coming your way next here on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find all my written work. And as always, we welcome on in our Blue Crew community members, our everydayers, our newcomers, and everybody in between. And thank you for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast, whether you're making us your first listen of the day, your last listen of the day, or maybe you're squeezing us in during a lunch break or a work break. We do appreciate you tuning in to the Locked On Giants podcast. All right, on today's show, we're going to continue our look at the Giants position groups as we count down the days to the start of training camp on July 23rd, which is, I believe, the first practice. And today we're going to take a look at the running backs, and what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at what the running backs need to deliver for the Giants offense this year, where they were maybe deficient last year, what they need to improve on. We'll take a look then at the individuals and where they can contribute and what they need to improve on. And then we'll look at what to watch from the position group this year, because we really didn't get a whole lot out of the spring. You know, there was no pads, no contact. Really, with the running game, you need to see them in pads and with contact if you're going to really gauge what they can do. So that's what we're going to cover on today's show. Again, welcome on into everybody. All right, let's get into it. The biggest needs for the Giants running game to contribute to this offense, I think it starts with yards after contact. Now, according to Pro Football Focus, Tyrone Tracy averaged 2.84 yards after contact. That was the best rate of the Giants running backs last year. I hate to do the comparison with Saquon Barkley because he's not here, but basically when Saquon left the building, with him went a 3.0 or better yards after contact average. So what I'm getting at with this point is you don't want to see your running backs get ankle tackled or brought down easily. You want to see them get some initial yards, break some of those tackles, and just pick up some extra yardage wherever you can. Okay. Another thing that hopefully we will see more of from the Giants running backs this year, speed. Now, this was kind of interesting. This stat comes via NFL Pro. The New York Giants had 2 rushing attempts, both by Tyrone Tracy, that exceeded 20 miles an hour. That was kind of surprising to me because you would like to have some speed in your offensive backfield, and the Giants just didn't have it. So it all kind of ties together, the yards after the contact, yards after the catch, if they're being used as receivers out of the backfield. It all kind of ties together. And I was surprised that the Giants really didn't have a lot of 15 mile per hour runs, 20 mile per hour runs. You know, you don't need it on every single run. You're not going to have that, but I would have thought they would have had a lot more than just 2 on the 20 miles and up per hour runs. Ball security. This is a big one, a huge one, as a matter of fact. Probably should have led off with this one, but this is big. The Giants running backs last year had 5 fumbles and lost all 5. 2 of them in the red zone, and both of them, incidentally, on goal-to-go situations. Can't have that. When the team isn't good enough, you can't be squandering away the football. You just can't. You can't be squandering away scoring opportunities. Giants running backs last year, they did so a little too often. So that definitely has to clean up. Now, the leaders in fumbles last year, Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary both tied with 2. So Yeah, can't have that. That's got to get cleaned up, and hopefully, we will see that cleaned up, especially from Tracy. If Tracy's going to be the RB1 for this team. All right, another thing that we would like to maybe see this Giants running back group do is improve rushing yards over expected per game. Tyrone Tracy was minus zero point 0.1, which was probably the best out of the Giants. Singletary was minus zero point 0.5. So what that stat is measuring, and again, that stat comes from NFL Pro, is if you were expecting or projecting the Giants, a particular running back to average, I don't know, uh, let's say 50 yards a game, and he was averaging, say 48, then that's a negative. That's something that has to be fixed. So you want to see that number be a positive figure. You want to see them exceed what the projected average was. And the Giants running backs, they just didn't do it last year. So part of that might have been the offensive line, the run blocking, which was inconsistent. We'll give credit where it's due, or in this case, we'll point out where a problem potentially lay. But the Giants running backs, again, all this ties together. They staying on the feet, forcing missed tackles, yards after contact. It all ties in together. Giants running back groups didn't really do that good of a job last year with that. Okay, the next one is improving rush success rate. Now, a rush success rate, this is from NFL Pro. Um, it's basically the successful plays that keep the offense on schedule. So, in other words, if you are moving forward and not being thrown for a loss or stopped for no gain, right? You want to be moving forward. The Giants had a success rate. All right, Tyrone Tracy, 31.8%. Devin Singletary led the team, or the running backs, I should say, 32.7%. You'd like to see that higher, like in, say, the 40s, the low 40s. And if you can get it even higher than that, even better. But the point being there is when it came to short yardage or, certain runs, the Giants running backs, they were getting stopped a little too often, I think, for most people's tastes. Again, you have to point to the offensive line. That's part of the problem. But also part of the problem, the running backs themselves, stopping their feet, for example, or not seeing a hole or not hitting a hole quick enough. Whatever the case may be, you can't exclude the running backs from having a low success rate. They were part of the problem. So, the running game last year in some, it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't quite the powerhouse that it was when Saquon was here. Now, I know Saquon is a unique talent. I know he is probably head and shoulders above what the Giants have right now, but you would have liked to have seen the Giants running backs produce a little bit more than what they did. And, again, offensive line notwithstanding, outside runs were a problem. Runs between the tackles, they were a problem. When they were used as a receiver out of the backfield, that was a problem. Just overall, if I had to sum up what the Giants running back group looked like last year, I would say meh, nothing special, not horrible, but nothing special. They need that. And it's especially going to be important now because look, as I said on yesterday's show, Russell Wilson is going to be the projected starter at quarterback. This is a guy who can throw the deep ball. And if you're throwing the deep ball, if you're able to get the deep ball down the field, that's going to loosen up the stuff up front, meaning that you're not going to face a lot of stacked boxes. So there should really be no excuse for the Giants running backs to hit stone walls, so to speak. They should have more opportunities to pick up more yardage, to get to the second level and beyond. All right. We didn't see that a whole lot last year, or at least not often enough. Hopefully this year we do see that because that's going to make such a difference in the offense. You just don't want your offense to be one dimensional. You don't want it to be, okay, hey, we stopped the run, beat us now with your arm. You want balance. And, I know under Brian Daboll, typically the offense tends to be a little bit more on the pass heavy side of things, but ideally they do strive for balance. And if Mike Kafka is calling the plays this year, which I do believe he will, I think you will see a return to balance, or at least an attempt to return to balance on the offensive side of the ball between the run and the pass. All right, coming up next, we're going to take a look at the individual players, some of the stats and production that they need to continue, and some of the things they need to fix. That's coming up right after this. Hey, Giant fans, ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So, in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. With Monarch Money, I've been able to get a complete glance at my household spending all in one easy to use app. This has helped me with budgeting and planning, not just for the upcoming week, but also for the short and long term savings. So go take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com to get 50% off your first year. Again, that's monarchmoney.com, and that promo code for 50% off your first year is Locked On NFL. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, and still to come, we've got a lot more position previews that we're going to do. I'm going to break them down for you. And I also have a very special episode of Locked On Giants plan, which I think I'm going to drop it on Friday. I mentioned that I was going to have a guest on, and I taped the show with the guest. It's someone I've never had on the show before, and as we get a little closer, maybe you'll start to see hints because I'll drop clips on the YouTube channel as well as on my social media. So if you're not following me on social media, make sure you are. I just figured we'd do something a little different now that we're kind of in the slow period of the NFL calendar. So hopefully you'll enjoy all that. All right, let's get back to our review or our preview of the Giants running back unit. And I want to talk now about the individual players and the production that they've had and that they need to continue versus what they need to fix. All right, so we'll start off with Tyrone Tracy, who is projected to be RB1 this year. All right, the first thing I'm going to start off with is ball security. Tyrone Tracy, 5 fumbles. Nope, can't have that. Absolutely not. That's something that was kind of surprising in a way because, I get it that Tyrone Tracy, relatively new to playing the running back position, I think he converted midway through his college career, but high and tight, and it's interesting at the OTAs and the mandatory minicamp, he talked about fixing that problem. And I said to him, so you're walking around the facility with the ball, tucked into your arm and having people trying to poke it out at random times? Because that's what Tiki Barber used to do. And he talked about improving his grip strength in order to really hang on to the ball. I'm hoping that he's also working on high and tight. I didn't see it in the spring, but again, you didn't have contact, you didn't have pads. That's something I'm going to be looking for with Tyrone Tracy when we get to the summer training camp. Okay. One thing Tracy got better at the end of last year was average yards per contact. So weeks 15 to 18, he got a little bit better with picking up yards after contact. And that's something I'd like to see him continue. So basically he got into a groove. I guess he started to feel a little bit comfortable. The run blocking was better. Tracy took advantage of it. So basically you don't want to see your running back going down on the ground on the first contact. Let's see. Tracy never faced a stack box, I should say, more than 37.5% in any one game in which he had at least 10 carries. This year, I suspect he might see a few more. So how is he going to do if he does see more stack boxes? That's something I'm going to be looking for as well. Let me see. Drops. Okay. Can we talk about drop passes? Now, this just blew my mind. Tyrone Tracy was a converted wide receiver. So you would think, oh, got decent hands, right? 6 drop passes, which was third on the team. 1/6 of the 36 drops that the Giants had last year. So you cannot have that. That's something he needs to pick up to clean up. All right. But overall, Tyrone Tracy showed flashes, showed promise. If he cleans up some of these, hiccups in his game, I think they're going to have something there. Now, let's talk about Devin Singletary. And it's interesting because Devin Singletary is a guy who earlier in the year, a lot of people were like, what did the Giants need him for? Especially after they drafted Cam Scatterbo. Well, folks, I'm going to tell you what they need Devin Singletary for. Last year, he was the best pass blocker amongst the Giants running backs. So on third down, you send out Devin Singletary. You knew that 9 times out of 10, he was going to stop whoever was going to come at him from getting into the backfield and hitting the quarterback, whether it be on a chip, whether it be a stone cold stop, whatever the case may be. Devin Singletary still has value, not just as a runner, not just as a receiver out of the backfield, but as a pass blocker. And that is so important, especially when you consider this next guy, Cam Scatterbo. That's an area he needs to build up. Okay, now speaking of Cam Scatterbo, who hopefully will be ready to go for training camp. He missed probably most of the spring with an undisclosed ailment. I'm not sure what he had. I was a little concerned by that because, look, with rookies, you don't want them to be missing time, especially when they have to learn the fundamentals of pass pro and some of the other stuff. But so again, hopefully Scatterbo's okay. But let's take a look at some of what he did well last year and what he needs to work on. Pass pro was definitely one of them. He had a 96.5 pass blocking efficiency rating per Pro Football Focus. That's got to be a little bit better. Okay. Now, some of the things he did well last year: missed forced tackles. He had 103 last year. He averaged 4.09 yards after contact per attempt last season as well. That's pretty good. For his career, 262 missed forced tackles and an average yards after contact per attempt, 3.95. All of that is pretty good. You want to see that transfer over to the NFL level. Now, these numbers are not going to be as high at the NFL level. I get it. But you want to see him kind of keep that going if he can. At least even if he has like 100 less missed forced tackles or something like that, you want to see that because that was an area the Giants running backs last year really didn't do that well in. Now, let's talk about breakaway runs. Breakaway runs of like 15 plus yards. Scatterbo had 59. Compare that to Tyrone Tracy. Tracy only had 10. So it would be nice if, again, the running back can stay on his feet, break into the second level, shake off a defender trying to tackle him, and get to the third level and beyond to daylight, right? Cam Scatterbo was able to do that. Hopefully he will be able to do that at the NFL level. So the Giants just didn't have enough of that. Hands. Now, this kind of surprised me in the spring. I thought Cam Scatterbo had the best hands of all the running backs when they were thrown to in the OTAs and the mandatory minicamp. I don't think I saw Scatterbo drop a single ball. Now, there were a couple balls that maybe were out of his reach because they weren't put on target, but he caught basically everything that was within his zip code, which was kind of nice to see. All right. Now, for his career in college, he had a 77.1% catch rate, and he averaged 11 yards per reception. Both of those numbers topped anybody that the Giants had at running back last year. So again, you want to scale it down a little bit because college obviously is a different level than the NFL. It's a little easier, I think, in some cases, depending on your competition. But if you could see maybe, even if they scale down by, 25% or something like that, that's still not too bad because these are areas in which the Giants were just not very good at. So hopefully Scatterbo, if he's healthy, ready to go when they start training camp, he can bring that because I do think ultimately Scatterbo is going to be the RB2. I don't know when that's going to be, but it's going to probably be Tracy, Singletary, Scadaboo, and then to be determined, which I will talk about actually coming up in the next segment. So speaking of which, we'll take our final break. And when we come back, I'm going to give you the questions that need to be answered at the running back spot. So do not go anywhere. We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Rougiette. I know that you've probably heard of Viagra and Cialis, maybe even tried them, but if you're looking for something that goes beyond the usual pill, then it's time to meet Rougiette Ready. Their 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue, kicks in fast, on average in about 15 minutes, while some of those usual pills can take up to hours, and the effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can always stay confident in control when the moment is right. And it's all completely online. You can read real customer reviews on their website, and over 150,000 men have already made the switch. Just head over to Rougiette.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, and manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiette website for full safety information.
All right, Giant fans, welcome back to Locked On Giants. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. Don't forget, I have a special bonus episode of Locked On Giants coming up for you. We'll drop that one probably Thursday night, maybe Friday morning, early Friday morning. Just something a little different to fill the time. We're going to continue, obviously, with the position group previews. That'll take us into next week and probably into the week after. But this one I just thought would be kind of a fun thing to do. I have a special guest. He's never been on the show before. He's not somebody who I think that you would necessarily associate with the NFL, but you'll understand when you see the show. That's all I'll say. I don't want to say who it is because I don't want to ruin the surprise, but I'm actually kind of excited about the show. So anyway, let's get back to our look at the New York Giants running backs group. All right, let's talk about now the questions, the biggest question marks facing the running backs. Now, I mentioned one of them at the end of last segment, and that is, will Cam Scadaboo be ready for the start of training camp? I don't know what he had in the spring. I do know that he was sidelined. And there were days when I just didn't see him out there. You know, when we were in the building, the media was in the building, to not see Scadaboo out there, you know, or he would come out late or whatever. So you knew he was getting rehab or he was working on something inside the building. So what that something is, I don't know. I hope it's not a lower body injury because those can take a while to heal up from. So hopefully he'll be okay and ready to go. All right. So the other big questions, what to look for. We can start with fourth running back. Will the Giants keep a fourth guy? And if so, will it be Eric Gray? Will it be Rashawn Baker? Will it be Dante Miller? Now, I'm wondering, you know, the fourth guy obviously is going to need to contribute on special teams. So Eric Gray has contributed on special teams. Dante Miller can contribute on special teams. Would they keep one of those guys over maybe Rashawn Baker? Maybe Rashawn Baker goes to the practice squad, depending on how he does in the in the preseason. When I did my 53-man roster projection on New York Giants on SI, I actually had Gray making the roster over Miller. And I'm kind of basing that off of last year. You know, Gray was kept on the roster, even though I know he doesn't, you know, give you a whole lot as a return specialist. Plus, you have Amir Smith-Marset that handle that role. You've got a few other guys who could probably handle that role. Gray didn't give you a whole lot also on offense. But the reason why I think the Giants go with 4 is because, again, Scadaboo's injury, that is the question mark. Now, if I see he comes in and it's not a problem, then maybe they go with 3 on the roster and they put 1 on the practice squad. Miller, last year, you know, the thing about Miller, great speed, straight ahead speed. But I think what kept him off the roster last year was the fact that he couldn't pass pro. And now, to his credit, he has worked at it. He has gotten better. You know, just talking to, you know, the coaches, the assistant coaches, he's made some progress. But is it enough progress to where he can push for a roster spot? I'm not convinced that will happen. But that said, you don't want to give up on speed because, as I said at the top of the program, the Giants just don't have a whole lot in terms of blazing speed at the running back position. Probably something they want to add if they can moving forward. All right. Now, the final thing, and this is a big one as far as I'm concerned, is how the running backs are going to be deployed. Now, what I mean by that is you don't want to watch the personnel group come out on the field and say, oh, they're going to do this or they're going to do that. Because sometimes the personnel group that they send out onto the field gives you a tip off as to what they're thinking about doing. And to give you an example, I go back to 2007. Whenever the Giants put Madison Hedgecock, who was the fullback at the time, out on the field, you knew that 9 times out of 10 it was going to be a run. And you also knew 9 times out of 10 which direction that run was going. So if I could sit up in the press box and say, oh, going to be a run and it's going to be a run to this direction or that direction, you better believe that the opponent knew what the Giants were going to do. Now, obviously, it worked a lot of times because the opponent wasn't able to stop them. But what I'm getting at is you want to have versatility amongst your running backs. You don't want a case where, say, for example, you put Devin Singletary out there and it's like, okay, Singletary is going to be the decoy or he's going to be the pass blocker, and they're going to send out, Tyrone Tracy, say, for example, if he's on the field at the same time, he's going to go out into a route. You want to keep people guessing. And I don't think at this stage of the game, the Giants are at that point where, depending on who they put out in the running back group, that you could say, oh, they're going to do this, or, oh, I'm not sure what they're going to do based on the personnel. So the rotation, for lack of a better word. And again, I do think Tracy will be RB1. Singletary will start off at RB2. I suspect at some point, I don't know when, Scatterboo will leapfrog over him on the depth chart. And again, I don't know if they're going to go with a fourth guy, but certainly that's going to be something that's going to need to play out. So going to be a lot of competition at the running back spot, a lot to look for in terms of improvement, as well as a lot of good things that they did last year, both whether it be at the college level or with the Giants, that they need to see if they can't continue, especially now that they've got a different quarterback in there who can maybe, like I said, loosen things up front because of his deep ball ability. So we'll see how it all plays out. The running back game, though, they're going to be very much a part of this offense, maybe a little bit more so, I would say, than they were last year when the Giants, they just had to pass all the time, which I get it. It was because they were behind and they had to play catch up. But you don't want to become one-dimensional. You certainly don't want to make yourself one-dimensional. And I think the Giants did that a little too often last year. So, all right, Giant fans, that's going to do it for this edition of the Locked On Giants podcast. Be sure to tune in tomorrow, and I'll have another episode for you as we continue looking at the New York Giants position groups and previewing them. And also, don't forget to check out the bonus episode that's going to drop probably on Friday. A little bonus episode to send you into the weekend, the long weekend. All right, Giant fans, again, thank you so much for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast, and I will see you tomorrow.